7 Fasting Secrets Demons Pray You Never Discover. Here's how to do it right. You've been told fasting is about giving up food, but let me tell you the truth. Fasting isn't about eating less, it's about fighting more. This isn't a diet plan, this is a declaration of war. Because every time you fast the right way, demons panic, the enemy gets nervous, and hell starts scrambling to shut you down. Why? Because fasting breaks chains they've spent years building. Fasting exposes lies they've whispered into your soul for decades. Fasting starves the flesh and strengthens the spirit. And when your spirit grows stronger, their grip grows weaker. You see, demons don't fear a believer who talks. They fear a believer who surrenders. And fasting is surrender in its purest form. It's saying, God, I want you more than I want comfort, more than I want food, more than I want my will. And that kind of hunger, real hunger for God, is lethal to the kingdom of darkness. Fasting isn't optional. Jesus didn't say if you fast. He said when you fast. Why? Because he knew what it does. He knew the kind of fire it releases in a person's life. He fasted for 40 days before facing Satan face to face. What does that tell you? Fasting is preparation. Fasting is purification. Fasting is power. But not all fasting is the same. There are secrets, biblical, explosive, spiritual secrets, that turn a fast from a religious ritual into a nuclear weapon against the enemy. And these are the secrets Satan does not want you to know. Because if you ever start fasting the way God designed it, hell won't be able to hold what it's been clinging to in your life. You're about to discover the 7 fasting secrets demons beg you not to use. And once you learn them, you'll never fast the same way again. Number 1. Fasting exposes spiritual chains you didn't know you had. You think you're free because you don't see chains. But fasting doesn't lie. Fasting reveals what comfort hides. You'll never know how much control your flesh has over you until you tell it no. That's when the cravings speak louder. That's when distractions multiply. That's when your body rebels. But here's the deeper truth. It's not just your body. It's the enemy behind the scenes, pulling strings, whispering, tempting, distracting. Because when you start fasting, you start starving everything that's been feeding off your spiritual laziness. Fasting exposes the real battle. That sudden irritability, that heaviness, that mental fog, that strange resistance right when you start pressing in, it's not random, it's spiritual. The enemy doesn't attack neutral believers. He attacks dangerous ones. And nothing makes you more dangerous than a believer who chooses spiritual discipline over fleshly comfort. That's why Jesus said this kind only comes out by prayer and fasting. In Mark 9:29. Did you catch that? Some demons only respond to fasting. Some strongholds won't budge until you stop feeding your flesh and start feeding your spirit. Some chains don't break with just worship music and a morning devotional. They snap when your flesh dies and your spirit rises. Fasting uncovers every spiritual parasite leeching off your life. The bitterness you thought you buried, it rises. The lust you thought you conquered, it stirs. The insecurity you masked with success, it screams. Not because the fast made them appear, but because the fast stripped away the noise that was covering them up. Demons want you full, because full people don't fast. Full people don't fight. Full people are comfortable, and comfortable Christians aren't a threat. But when you fast, everything gets exposed. And what's exposed can finally be cast out. So don't run from the discomfort. Press in. Stay with it, because what feels like struggle is actually surgery. God's removing what's been hiding under your comfort. Chains you didn't even know were there start snapping. And the enemy, he starts losing his grip, because when you fast the way heaven intended, your spiritual eyes open, your soul sharpens, and your bondage gets exposed to the light. And demons, they hate the light. Number 2. Fasting turns down the volume of Satan's voice. You're not just battling sin, you're battling noise. And the devil is loud. He shouts through culture. He screams through temptation. He whispers in distractions. And most of the time, we don't even realize how much we're listening until we fast. Because fasting does something powerful. It doesn't just silence your stomach, it silences the enemy. The enemy thrives in noise, confusion, busyness, constant movement. He wants your life full of everything but God. He doesn't need to turn you evil. He just needs to keep you distracted. But fasting clears the static. Suddenly, the voice that told you you'll never change starts to fade. The shame you thought was truth starts to unravel. That heavy cloud that followed you starts to lift. Why? Because fasting cuts through the fog. Elijah didn't hear God in the earthquake, or the fire, or the wind. He heard God in the stillness, the whisper. 1 Kings 19:12 says, fasting brings that stillness, that clarity. It strips away the world's noise, so you can finally hear what's real. Satan knows this. That's why the moment you start fasting, your distractions multiply. Your phone rings more. Your schedule fills up. Your thoughts race. Because the enemy knows if you ever quiet the chaos, you'll start to recognize the lies. And once you recognize the lie, you'll reject it. Satan is terrified of a believer who can discern his voice from God's. Because deception only works when it goes undetected. And fasting is like turning on a spiritual flashlight in a dark room. It exposes what's been hiding in plain sight. How many attacks have you tolerated because you thought they were normal? How many lies have you lived under because you never made space for truth? Fasting makes space. It dials down the enemy. It tunes your ears to heaven. It shifts the frequency from flesh to faith. And the devil? He doesn't want you tuned in. Because the moment you start hearing clearly, you stop falling for his tricks. You stop obeying fear. You stop chasing things that drain you. You stop listening to the voice that tells you, this is just how it'll always be. And you start listening to the one who says, behold, I make all things new. That's why fasting is deadly to darkness. It doesn't just weaken the enemy's grip, it exposes his voice. And once it's exposed, you'll never mistake it for truth again. Number 3. Fasting makes your prayers a weapon of mass destruction. You want your prayers to move mountains, but you've been climbing them with your hands tied. Let me tell you something demons know: prayer is powerful, but prayer with fasting is unstoppable. It's the spiritual combination hell fears the most. You can sing, you can preach, you can declare, but when you pray while fasting, it's like lighting a match in a room full of gasoline. The explosion doesn't just affect you, it affects the atmosphere. Let's look at scripture. Esther fasted before approaching the king and saved a nation from genocide. Daniel fasted and angelic armies were dispatched to fight in the unseen realm. Jesus fasted and then faced the devil head-on and crushed every temptation. What do they all have in common? They didn't just pray, they fasted first. Why? Because fasting clears the path. It sharpens your aim. It aligns your heart so that your prayers don't just rise, they pierce. The devil wants you to think fasting is extreme, unnecessary, legalistic. He wants you full, foggy, and flesh-driven, because a flesh-driven prayer lacks fire, but a fasted prayer, that's a spiritual bomb. Demons don't fear long prayers. They fear prayers born in surrender, because that's what fasting is. It's you saying, God, strip away my strength so you can become mine. When you fast and pray, you're not manipulating God. You're emptying yourself so that nothing blocks your connection with Him. And when that connection is pure, hell starts shaking. Satan fears the believer who's praying from a place of fire, not feelings. Because that kind of prayer doesn't beg, it declares. It doesn't wonder, it knows. It doesn't hope something will change. It causes change. And here's the part the enemy hates most. Fasting doesn't just make your prayers powerful. It makes you sensitive. You start praying for things you didn't even know were broken. You start interceding for people you didn't even like. You start seeing chains and breaking them. That's why demons attack your desire to fast. That's why your cravings spike. That's why your body screams. Because hell knows if you keep going, something is going to break. Don't stop, because every meal you skip in obedience becomes a brick in the altar of your breakthrough. And when heaven sees that altar, fire falls. Your prayers have power, but when you fast, they become a weapon of mass destruction in the war for your soul. Number 4, fasting weakens the flesh and strengthens the spirit. Let's be real. Your biggest enemy isn't always the devil. Sometimes it's your own flesh. The part of you that craves comfort over calling, that chooses pleasure over purity, that wants a quick fix instead of holy fire. And demons, they know it. That's why they don't always come with horns and horror. They come through cravings, through ego, through the need to be seen, validated, admired. They speak to your flesh, because that's the doorway. But fasting slams that door shut. Fasting says to your flesh, you're not in charge anymore. And that is dangerous to hell. Because when your flesh is weak, your spirit can finally breathe. When you silence the appetite for the world, you awaken the appetite for God. Most people live with their spirits suffocated, buried under Netflix, sugar, dopamine hits, social media scrolls, and constant stimulation. Their spirit is alive, but buried beneath their appetites. But when you fast, you dig it out. You feel the hunger. And instead of running to the fridge, you run to the Father. You feel the craving, and instead of feeding it, you confront it. That's when breakthrough begins. Because the flesh doesn't die quietly. It screams. It bargains. It fights for survival. But the longer you fast, the weaker it becomes. And with every day of obedience, your spirit grows louder. Suddenly you hear God's whisper where you once only heard worry. Suddenly you feel a pull to worship instead of wander. Suddenly the things that used to tempt you don't taste the same anymore. Because your spirit is awakening. Paul said, I discipline my body and make it my slave. In 1 Corinthians 9:27. Why? Because your body makes a terrible master, but it can be a powerful servant. Fasting puts your body in its place. It dethrones the cravings. It exposes the idols. And it trains your soul to say, not my will, but yours be done. That's not weakness. That's power. Real power isn't in how loud you pray. It's in how deeply you've surrendered. And nothing trains surrender like fasting. The devil doesn't fear your emotions. He fears your discipline. So if you want to be a believer that scares hell, starve the flesh, strengthen the spirit, and fast until your appetite shifts from the world to the Word. Number 5. Fasting breaks generational strongholds. Some of the battles you're fighting didn't start with you. They've been passed down through choices, through habits, through spiritual agreements, made before you were even born. Generational curses, hidden pacts, cycles of addiction, anger, perversion, fear, and the demons behind them, they've been in your bloodline for decades. But fasting breaks what's been building for generations. Because fasting doesn't just change your appetite, it changes your authority. You're not just resisting sin, you're renouncing agreements. You're standing in the gap for your family. You're saying, it stops with me. You think the devil attacks your fast because it's inconvenient? No, he attacks your fast because it's intercessory, because it threatens his legal right to operate in your bloodline. Let me say this clearly. Some demons feel entitled to your family. They've been there for generations, unchallenged, unexposed, unfought, until now. Until you rise up and fast with fire. Until you say, I'm not just fasting for me. I'm fasting for my children, my marriage, my household, my legacy. Esther didn't just fast for herself. She fasted for her people. Daniel didn't just fast for insight. He fasted for his nation. You are not powerless. You are positioned. And fasting is your way of saying, I refuse to let the same demons that tormented my parents torment me. The devil wants you to think the cycle is permanent, that you'll always be bound, that you'll always fight what your father fought, that you'll always fall where your mother fell. But when you fast in the name of Jesus, you break the contract. You sever the tie. You expose the stronghold. You call heaven's power into your family's past, and you change your future. This is why demons hate fasting, because when you fast, you become a bloodline warrior. Not just surviving what's been passed down, but breaking it. So fast, like it matters, because it does. Your obedience might be the very key that sets the next generation free. Number 6. Fasting invites angelic warfare and divine intervention. When you fast, you're not just getting weaker in the flesh, you're summoning firepower from heaven. You may not see it, but the moment you begin to fast, things begin to move in the spirit realm. Chains start shaking, walls start trembling, and angels start moving. Demons know this. That's why they hate it. Remember Daniel. He fasted for 21 days, and on the first day God heard. But what happened next is what terrifies the enemy. The angel said, "Your words were heard." But the prince of Persia resisted me for 21 days. In Daniel 10:12, 13. Did you catch that? Daniel fasted, and God released an angel with the answer. But a demonic principality fought to block it. For 3 weeks, spiritual war raged in the heavens. Now imagine if Daniel had stopped fasting after day 3. He would have never seen the breakthrough. But he kept going. He kept fasting, and eventually, Michael the archangel came and broke through. Some of you are one fast away from angelic intervention, and the enemy knows it. That's why when you fast, all hell breaks loose. That's why your thoughts spiral, your body resists, your emotions rage, because something bigger than you is happening, and the devil knows reinforcements are coming. You think your fast is just hunger, but in the spirit, it's a signal flare to heaven. It's you saying, God, send help, send fire, send angels if you have to. And heaven responds to hunger. Fasting doesn't twist God's arm. It aligns you with His will. And when you align, divine backup comes. Some of you have been fighting with your words when you need to be fasting with your whole life, because fasting invites heaven into the fight. Jesus said He could call 12 legions of angels, over 72,000 warriors from glory. What if your fast is the act of obedience that activates the army? Fasting isn't about suffering. It's about strategy. And in this war, you're not fighting alone. So the next time you fast, don't just expect clarity, expect conflict. Expect resistance. Expect war in the heavenlies. Because if the enemy is trying this hard to stop you, something powerful must be on the way. Number 7. Fasting makes you dangerous to hell. You want to make the devil nervous? Don't just post Bible verses. Don't just sing worship songs on Sunday. Fast. Because fasting isn't flashy. It's not public. It's not performative. And that's exactly why it's powerful. Demons don't tremble at hype. They tremble at holiness. And fasting creates it. Fasting strips you, breaks you, refines you. It purifies you. It purifies your motives, humbles your heart, and sets your soul on fire. It removes the clutter until only one desire remains: God Himself. And when a believer wants God more than blessings, more than success, more than comfort, hell starts to panic. Because now you're dangerous. You're no longer motivated by applause. You're no longer manipulated by temptation. You're no longer distracted by noise. You're sharp, surrendered, Set apart. Fasting creates spiritual precision. You stop swinging blindly and start hitting strongholds at their roots. You stop praying emotional prayers and start praying effective ones. You stop being a spiritual civilian and become a soldier. This is why the devil will do everything in his power to distract you from fasting. He'll tell you it's not necessary. He'll convince you it's legalistic. He'll flood your schedule, stir up conflict, tempt your appetite. Anything to keep you full, comfortable, and casual. Because casual Christians don't threaten kingdoms. But fasting Christians, they're fire. They carry something the world can't explain. They walk in authority. They live with urgency. They don't just believe in God, they burn for Him. And demons know, once you start fasting not for results, but for relationship, you become untouchable. Because fasting isn't just about what you're giving up. It's about what you're becoming. And when you become someone who longs for God more than anything else, no chain can hold you. No demon can silence you. No darkness can stay near you. So fast. Fast when no one sees. Fast when you don't feel it. Fast until your appetite changes. Because when you do, you won't just be surviving. You'll be dangerous. Conclusion. Hell hopes you never take this seriously. Let me tell you something. The enemy prays you never figure out. Fasting is a weapon, and in the hands of a surrendered believer, it's lethal. This isn't about skipping meals. This isn't about spiritual trends. This isn't about impressing God. This is war, and every time you fast the way God designed it, you're stepping onto a battlefield that most people are too distracted to see. You're not starving for attention. You're starving the enemy's influence in your life. You're not emptying yourself to get weaker. You're making space for the fire of God to fall. Demons don't tremble when you start talking about fasting. They tremble when you actually do it. Because fasting does what comfort never will. It breaks chains. It silences lies. It sharpens your hearing. It resurrects your hunger for God. It draws angelic reinforcements into your situation. And it makes you a nightmare to the kingdom of darkness. The devil isn't scared of Christians who know these secrets. He's scared of Christians who use them. So here's the question. What are you going to do now? Will you go back to casual Christianity? Or will you fast like your family's deliverance depends on it? Will you fast like souls are on the line? Will you fast like your breakthrough is one act of obedience away? Because it might be. You've heard the secrets. You've seen the strategy. Now it's time to pick up the weapon. Fast when it's inconvenient. Fast when your flesh fights it. Fast when the devil whispers it's not that serious. Because if hell is this afraid of fasting, that's exactly how serious it is. Don't fast to earn anything. Fast to burn, for the one who gave you everything. This is your moment to shake off the lukewarm life, to break the cycle that's been holding you, to go deeper than you've ever gone before. Not because you're strong, but because you're finally empty enough for his strength to rise. The enemy is hoping you scroll past this, that you'll say, "Nice video," and do nothing. Don't let him win. Fast, fight, burn, and make hell regret the day you learned these 7 secrets.